I've watched a lot of shows in the last year. And I've chosen some good ones, and I've chosen some very disappointing
Turn
ones.
left on East Fairview Loop.
And I've learned to be more selective with what I watch. I mean, I don't watch shows until they're all done, because I've been burned by at least 6 TV shows. 5 of them were on Netflix. One of them, I don't remember what it was on, but I think it was NBC. Anytime I get involved in a show, it either gets canceled, it goes off the rails, not in a good way. They forget about their character development. Or they try to conform to heteronormative expectations. I mean, if it works for the story, and that's what you've been building up to, and all the moments of the show building up to it support your end result, fine. If it doesn't, we have a problem. I'm a very smart, critically thinking person. I mean, my IQ is 141. I am tired of watching shows that insult my intelligence. I'm tired of being told instead of shown. I'm tired of watching shows that fumble and waste all of the capability, where characters are not developed, they're one-dimensional, they're stereotypes, and as soon as they serve the purpose, they vanish, and we don't know whatever happened to them. The cast is either too big, they don't use it to their potential, or they bring out outsiders that don't do anything for the rest of the show. I mean, shows have very limited time. I mean, the average show has anywhere from 9 to 12 episodes. You do not have time. You do not have time to waste it on characters that are not going to push the narrative. And I'm tired of watching shows that fumble character development. Or worse, they develop the character and then nothing happens. Or the character keeps circling around that same flaw. They never explain why. And every time you think the person has finally gotten to the point where they can act like a half-decent person and not have this flaw. And when I mean flaw, I mean I want them to be multi-layered, human, and have flaws. But when a flaw constantly gets focused on, we think it's resolved, but it never gets resolved, and it only flares up when it's effective to the plot, and then it vanishes when it's not. I mean, consistency is a problem. I mean, I like the horror genre when it comes to movies, but there is no continuity. I don't know of a single horror franchise with 5 or more movies in it that has continuity. It's like that with characters. I'm tired of seeing an interesting character with interesting background, origin, whatever. And they never go beyond just the surface. We call it wasted potential. And it's just so frustrating. And one of my newest pet peeves is having characters that if they remove them from the show, they don't really impact the plot. They create drama, but they don't impact the plot. If the average character in a season of a show has a specific amount of screen time, if that character own way, they need to go. I've waited years for shows to kill off characters that just were bogging down plot development. When you add a new character, you need to make them interesting. I'm sick of watching stereotypes. I'm tired of watching shows where a character has complex motivations, but they never tell us why. They never make them human. And when the end result is the person's just a jerk, it's just not worth my time. If somebody's a jerk, just state it right out of the gate. I mean, they do that in Euphoria with like Nate. You don't have to make someone multi-dimensional and then at the very end, oh, they were just a jerk. Just make him a jerk who's an anti-hero or something. Make it more interesting. I should not have to wait 10 years to find out that someone was just a jerk. And they had so many chances to make the character one of the most complex characters in television history, and they went the route, well, we're not going to explain anything. They're just a jerk. This is why any show that is in English, I do not watch until it's done. This can be 10 years, 10 months, I mean, you name it. The only exceptions to that rule is if it's a mini-series, or if I know nothing's going to come of it, but I still like, usually it's a ship or a character. I mean, I watched, what was that show? Lockwood and Company. I knew it was canceled, and I knew we weren't going to get the ending that the fans deserved, but I still watched it because of the ship. I think Shadow and Bones was like that too. It was canceled, but I watched it because of a ship. That's fine for me. As long as I know nothing's going to come of it, and I'm okay with that, I don't mind watching it. It's when I don't know, and I waste my time. I mean, like I said before, if it's not monsters, I'm not watching the Netflix show until it's completely done. And then I research it to find out if it's a waste of time. 9 out of 10 times it's a waste of time. Especially if you're looking for amazing queer representation and queer equality in characters. I'm just tired of wasting my time. I can go to foreign shows. There are thousands of shows. If you want queer representation that is not just visibility, but equality, where people, writers especially, spend their time making these queer characters interesting, complex, and they don't just tease the audience. They make it happen, usually by episode 6. Of course, they always break up in episode 11. But when you're used to eating a great meal, you don't settle for fast food. I mean, once in a while, I watch a movie or show that's so bad it's good. But when I want really quality entertainment, I know where not to go. I watch crime documentaries on Netflix all the time. I will not get emotionally invested in any Netflix show, in any American show, until it's completely done. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I'm not going to waste my emotional labor, time, and attention on something that 99% of the time makes me regret ever picking it up. It's not worth it, and there are so many alternatives that don't bait you. Don't waste your time. That I'm just tired of doing it. English-speaking shows, there are some good ones, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to consistency of showing as much care for queer characters as they do straight ones, 99% of the time, they drop the ball. I've seen every American show that has at least a 9.0 for rating. I've seen some that were just fun to watch, but they're not going to make a dent in television history. I want shows that don't make a fool of me and don't gaslight me. My roommate can settle for subpar entertainment because she doesn't know any better, but I'm not going to. If I know 99% of the characters on a show are going to have an unhappy ending, they're going to be miserable, awful human beings, I might watch it before it ends. I mean, almost everyone in Euphoria is not going to have a happy ending. Well, I hope Jules and Maddie have a happy ending, but everyone else I don't really care about. And if the show is just a show about miserable people, fine. But if I actually like characters and want them to have a great ending, like a nice finale, I'm waiting till the end because I'm not wasting my time again. It drives me crazy. And let's be honest, I'm sure a lot of you have experienced the same thing. It's disrespectful to your audience to play up certain narratives, characters, all of that. And then, when it matters, act like nothing is supposed to happen. I don't even like the ambiguousness of characters anymore. I just don't like that. You can have characters who don't know their orientation or their gender or what have you. But you need to make it very clear to the audience what they are. And then let the person throughout the season or the series come to grips with it. One of my pet peeves is writers and shows having characters that are ambiguous on the spectrum of sexuality and orientation. They never clarify. They never nail down what it is. And they're basically milking the audience. I've watched so many shows and movies that make it perfectly clear, like 100% clear, that a character is gay, lesbian, bi, whatever. The character just needs time to realize, accept, and live it out. Heartstopper is a good example. We know that the main character is gay and is out. The other one, I think by episode 2, the audience knows something is different about this blonde character. And it takes a few more episodes for them to accept that they're bisexual. But if there's no intention of getting the audience to know and wait for that person to come to terms with it, don't have those characters. I mean, that's one reason I'm not watching Wednesday. They do not make it very clear what people are. And I'm done with ambiguous sexuality. Like I said, I don't mind if the character needs time to come to grips with it. But the writers, the writing, the character behavior needs to 100% support this person is not straight. And it should be heavily implied what the person is. Or at least the name of the show should tell you. watched a dozen shows before I even knew about sexual orientation that had characters that were so ambiguous. There's no legitimate reason why writers would leave it that way. I mean, if you've ever seen the BBC British version of Sherlock, I mean, I think we all know what John Watson is, okay? But Sherlock, they never nailed it down. They never said, this is what the person is. Based on what I know from psychology and orientations, I knew what Sherlock is. But the show writers should have nailed it down. You can make it emphatically clear what someone is by someone making an innuendo, friends asking, the person's behavior, but to never nail down what people are. That's something you do back in the 1970s. Unfortunately, they still do that in 2026. How many shows like Supernatural, Teen Wolf, Hannibal, there is no way those people are straight. And yet, they never clarify, ever. There is no way Stilinski is straight. I do not care what the writers say. He is not straight, period. Sherlock, he has to be asexual or aromantic or something on the spectrum of that label, which is perfectly fine. I enjoy characters that don't meet the stereotypical heterosexual expectation. I think the first asexual character I had ever seen on television was that vampire from Shadowhunters. I like characters that are not heterosexual and who give amazing visibility and representation to non-straight people. And yeah, I do like straight characters. You can make straight characters as complex, interesting, and morally gray as a queer person is, just based on their orientation, which I want characters that are queer to be more than just their orientation. And I have seen 3 shows lately that just make the queer character their representation. There was an SNL sketch about somebody recently whose orientation was made fun of. Okay? It's not funny. I don't care what people say on YouTube. It's not funny. And I'm done with ambiguous subtext. If it's season 1 and the person is under the age of 16, subtext can be important. But if somebody is an adult and they're acting in ways, there's no way that person is 100% straight. I want more than just subtext, because subtext 99% of the time just doesn't come to fruition. I am tired of it. I am so tired of people queer coding people and then later on ask and then gaslighting me about it. We deserve better. I mean, I feel bad for the audience that is actually aromantic, asexual, bisexual, because those labels are seldomly portrayed on television, let alone getting it accurate, right, with sensitivity. I have watched shows that actually erase people's asexuality, like The Big Bang Theory or Riverdale, where a character is asexual in the comics and they change it to being hetero. Not acceptable, people. Not acceptable. You cannot make a character who's a nerd, who doesn't want relationships or sexual experiences, and then in season 4 utterly change that person's motivation, and it's because they want to de-aromantic somebody. There's a difference between a guy who doesn't want a relationship and sex because they're introverted, shy, a virgin, or they're married to the career. That is very different from an actual asexual, aromantic character. And yet, on television, there is no difference. Because any character who does not want to couple off and have children is deemed asexual. Anyone who has an extremely low or below the toxic expectation of libido is considered asexual. Just because someone is not having sex or going out on dates does not make someone asexual. If I had $1 for every time somebody asked me that question, I could buy a television. And some of the representation we have on television is not doing anyone any favors. Anytime you boil down somebody to their orientation, or their entire character arc and storyline is their orientation, their personality, their introvertedness is because of their orientation, we're going to have a problem. Changing people's orientation when there's no evidence to prove otherwise. Sticking a label on somebody, but that's not how they're behaving. I've watched shows where straight characters act gay, but they're still deemed heterosexual. This is not good for people who don't fit into heterosexual norms. It's not good for heterosexuals. Because believe it or not, straight people base what they deem gay or what is recognizably gay by television. Straight people were raised on will and grace and the L word and so many things. If you cannot get someone's orientation right or handle it with sensitivity, a whole generation of straight people will miss the mark. Not all. But if a show is mainstream enough that it is popular enough, and you don't get a character's orientation right or portray it with sensitivity and accuracy, you can mess up an entire straight generation. I've seen it. Erasure is a real thing. It really is. I've seen characters that in the canon book show comics were asexual, aromantic, bisexual, and the TV version or the movie changes it. This is a hate crime, people. You cannot change somebody's orientation. Some people say you shouldn't change a character's race. I'm white, so I don't have an opinion. If anyone who isn't white is listening and you have an opinion about changing a character's nationality, skin color, or ethnic background, leave it in the comments. I think the Snape character from the reboot of Harry Potter, he gets death threats because he's African American. At least I think he is. And people don't want Snape to be black. I don't really have an opinion. As long as the story holds up to why he is what he is, I do not care. As long as African Americans and minorities say it's okay, and that it's not a racist thing to do, I'm okay with it. If anybody starts saying it's not culturally sensitive, I'll change my mind. As long as the story backs up the choice of the actor selection, I'm okay with it. I can't say I've ever thought Snape would be anything but white, only because everyone on the planet grew up with the Harry Potter, the Snape, who was Alan Rickman. I'm not someone who says that only queer people should play queer roles. I'm saying people who are queer should have equal opportunity to play all these characters. That's all. And I think it's important to recognize and protect queer people, queer actors and actresses' access to playing characters similar to themselves. I think queer people can play straight characters because that's what being an actor is about. Playing a role, not playing yourself. As long as queer and straight people play queer characters that are treated with sensitivity, love, and accuracy without any contempt or gaslighting going on, I think it can be a wonderful experience. However, some people on the internet might send you hate mails that will make you feel otherwise. And it's very sad that people can't play a role without people taking pot shots at them. I mean, it is brutal. I know the actor who played the young Anakin Skywalker on The Phantom Menace was bullied so bad he left acting. He got death threats. So did the Joffrey from Game of Thrones. You would not believe what people do to actors. So no, I don't have a problem with straight people playing queer characters or queer actors and actresses playing straight roles. As long as everyone has equal opportunity, equal pay, and equal recognition, I don't have a problem with it. What I do have a problem with is hiring someone who is not culturally acceptable for a role. I think the only change for a character that would make me uncomfortable is making an African American character white or changing and erasing someone's sexuality. That would make me uncomfortable. And I think we've come, in my opinion, to a time where we can explore so many more ways that sexuality appears or can exist. I haven't seen 3 asexual, aromantic characters that was portrayed accurately on television. I have watched shows like The Big Bang Theory that have asexual, aromantic characters, and then by season 5, they completely change and make the person something they weren't in previous seasons. Not okay, people. Not okay. People like Jughead Jones were asexual in comics. They made him heterosexual. Sherlock was deemed to be aromantic asexual. They never said what he was. I don't like ambiguous orientation or sexuality. I just don't like it. Because you look at how straight characters are portrayed, they are never left ambiguous. I have yet to see one straight character that was always straight, undeniably straight, and they never clarified they were straight. They always, every single time, unless somebody is a nerd, the white boy always gets the love interest, unless he's a nerd. And yet, queer people are lucky to even have feelings for someone. And if they do, they're told to get over it. It's a phase. It's not real. Or, in my opinion, more egregious, they use those feelings to prop up a straight relationship or give a straight love, relationship, partnership the value and long-term endgame it deserves. I mean, you can do that in any way you want. Don't use a straight person to do it. I mean, don't use a queer person to do it. And don't use a straight person either. Nobody should be used to hold together a straight relationship. Sacrificing someone's feelings for a straight person, sacrificing a queer person's feelings for a straight person's feelings is homophobia. It is homophobia to use a queer person's feelings as a plot device that is not resolved and is not treated with the love and validation and sensitivity straight relationships and feelings are. It's like, have you seen a movie with straight characters that were ever told you're lucky to find love, you'll never find love, your feelings are inconvenient, a phase, you'll get over it, and that your love should be sacrificed for somebody else? I haven't seen it. I would say the only exception is if the person is so unable to be somebody's partner due to being an introvert, a social outcast, or being a nerd. If a white guy, a white cis heterosexual guy, who is somewhat attractive and decent, will always get the girl. And I guess for gay people, they're lucky if they don't get killed. Because they are 1,000 times more likely to die. I think the only thing that comes close are African American people, where they suffer or die so the white heroine can live. I've seen too many horror movies, and I think Get Out is one of the few horror movies where a black person is not sacrificed for a white person, or their suffering doesn't jumpstart the white person's character arc, the climax. That is racist. I think the most egregious version of this would be Showgirls, where a black woman suffers terribly, so a white protagonist starts acting like they have empathy. Non-acceptable. And yeah, it was in the 90s, but that's still no excuse. You don't use marginalized people, minorities, and women as plot devices. I don't even watch movies or shows anymore that use violence to shock their audience. Everything that happens in a show has to have a specific purpose. Sex, nudity, violence. Do not do it for shock value. That's poor writing. Unless you're on an adult website. Writers use those plots to drive the story. Not just there to take up space. Their stories should be like a fine-tuned machine. Every scene, every interaction, every conversation should push the plot to the inevitable end. It should never just take up space or titillate the male audience. That's not good writing. I'm tired of watching underdeveloped characters. I'm tired of the same old things in shows. I'm tired of watching shows that make fun of queer people, or disgust toward queer people. I'm tired of watching shows where queer people do not get a love interest because the writers don't make time and don't take any initiative or even have an effort to give the queer person as much of a quality love story as the heterosexual characters. And I think watching Sex Education with Asa Butterfield was one of the first shows I ever watched where sexuality and orientation was different than how I had been taught in a Christian environment. To actually see portrayed on screen females, whether they were cis or transitioned, that wanted sex more than guys was something I had never seen before. People wanting relationships without sex, I had never seen that on television ever. Different power structures that aren't heterosexual or patriarchal in relationship was something extremely new and different for me. And we're lucky if queer characters are shown 50% of the focus, time, preparation, dignity, kindness, love, compassion that straight characters receive, even if they are the most boring characters in a show. Straight characters will always get more of everything than queer characters. And don't get attached to queer characters because they die like 10 times more than straight characters. That's homophobic. There are so many ways for character arcs to happen without a queer person dying. They actually coined the term bury your gays because it's so nefarious. I actually learned that there are different ways to bury your gays. This is interesting. Bury your gays is a term that was really developed during the Hays Code before the end of the 60s. And according to the Hays Code, all morally dubious, deviant people, according to the weird people at that time, no one who did villainy or crossed gender expectations or performances could have a happy ending. All criminals had to die or get justice. Women who were too independent and sexually liberated would have to receive comeuppance. And queer people were either the villains or they died. Because that was the law in America for almost 40 years. So there are many ways to bury your gays. The most obvious one is putting them in the ground because they're dead, which is homophobic. Or you can bury your gays by never developing their character, developing their character into plot devices that help straight people. Devaluing a queer person's feelings, desires, dreams, and pursuits like it's a joke. Giving someone's endgame as something you're portraying they wanted, but if you go back and rewatch the seasons, that's not what they wanted from the very beginning. Another way they can bury your gays is by making it very clear that queer people's feelings do not matter, and if it helps anybody straight, they're a casualty. Queer love is treated like a token that needs to be gotten over. Being queer is not a phase. any more than the color of your eyes is a phase, or your real hair color is a phase. You either are or you're not. You can temporarily change your hair color and your eye color, but that's not your original color. You can't change what you are. Bury your gaze can take many shapes and forms. And just because writers subvert the audience and try to have queer visibility is not enough. Queer visibility is like a ghost that does nothing. It's not helping anybody. Can you imagine if we only had straight visibility? Where nobody said they were straight, nobody acted like they were straight. There was nobody being confirmed as straight, and you would hardly know they were straight. This would never happen. Every medium that has straight people basically forces it down your throat that people are straight. Straight visibility does not exist because they don't stop at having just a straight character. The straight person basically oozes on everything. And that's the way it's always been, and it's terrible. Having one queer person in a show does not make it visibility. If that queer character doesn't have or experience or attain as much with the same sincerity as straight people, that's not visibility. The writers are hacks. Queer characters should not be a joke. Their sexuality should not be a joke. Their coming out should not be a joke. The crushes, the love they have for people, even if the person is not queer, matters just as much as what straight people feel. Queer people do not have to get over their feelings. They don't have to grow up, because being queer is not about being a child any more than you need to grow up out of your straightness. And it's just as much of bury your gaze, underdeveloping a queer character, or the writers claiming we're woke because we have a bisexual character that is not treated with the same sincerity as straight characters. That is bury your gaze. If a queer character does not, at the end of a show, receive what they wanted in season 1, or something better than what they wanted, where they're reduced to their sexuality, and at the very end, there is no inclination that their dreams, their talents, are their end game, just reduced to their sexuality. This is bury your gaze. This is erasing and suppressing equality. Can you imagine if show writers treated straight people the same way they treat queer people? They would never work in Hollywood again. They would not. No straight audience would put up with the crap they put gay audiences and queer characters through. The biggest loser, the most underdeveloped character, the most homophobic situation, those straight characters will always get a better in-game than queer characters. I've watched at least 3 shows where the queer character never got a love interest their entire show. I mean, they had crushes, they were too scared to ask the person out or confess, but in these 3 shows, every single time, the queer character never got a romantic person. And I'm not saying queer people have to have one. I'm saying when this character desires one, and there's no reason why they shouldn't. Not because that's their identity and they'll be miserable if they don't have one, but the person is very attractive, is extremely popular with girls. Guys like them. There's no reason that they're not being swarmed by people. The only reason is that the writers don't care enough to develop a love interest. And you can't convince me otherwise. I mean, I'm not stupid. If a major straight character beloved by fans worldwide went 10 seasons without a love interest, fans would revolt. Even the most wicked female protagonists in shows have at least 3 love interests. Some of the most unlikable, miserable, creepy, just awful characters, especially females, have multiple love interests. To go 7+ seasons where a queer character never goes out on a single day is to bury your gays. There is no reason not to have something, even if it does not last. You need to give somebody at least 1 season where they try something. I will not watch those shows. I will not support those shows. I will actually leave a unpleasant comment on the YouTube channel of Netflix where they release them. No way. I feel pity for the character. In my opinion, if you're going to pull a bury your gays over 7 seasons, just kill off the character immediately or let them vanish. That is more merciful than pulling a Meg Griffin. And yes, in most shows out there that are created and written for and by straight audiences and straight writers, they pull the Meg Griffin. There's one character in every show that's barely developed, beat up, never gets the long stick, ever. And it's usually the queer character, or the character that's nerdy and isn't the stereotypical masculine character. It's very much bury your gays. There's no reason not to have at least 1 love interest. Even at the very end, they realize they'd rather be alone. They should have at least 1 love interest in a show. Because most shows portray at least 5 to 10 years of time in a character's life. They're going to have some romantic entanglement once in 10 years. The only reason they don't is because the writers just don't care enough to make it happen. And I will not watch those shows. How you treat queer people is who you are. If you don't think their love lives, their feelings are worthy enough to even focus a season on, then fuck you. It's unforgivable. It's disgusting. And I'm done with the subpar education, entertainment. I'm just done with it all. We need more than just a character being visible. We need a compassionate portrayal of a sensitive topic. If straight writers can write compassionate movies about people with cancer, addiction, infidelity, they can write one about a character who's gay, who is going through a lot of life changes. Why do they always have to make queer characters miserable and happy, socially awkward? Why? Why can't they make characters who are queer that like who they are and don't hide or worse, never tell the person they like them. We all deserve better. And I'm tired of watching crap. Because it is bury your gays. Anytime they treat queer people with less dignity, less compassion, less anything than straight people, that is a bury your gays. A gay person does not have to die for it to be bury your gays. Sometimes bury your gays is because of apathy, homophobia, dislike of a character. Treating any character, especially queer ones, like the Meg Griffin of a show, the punching bag, is homophobic. Treating anyone's coming out scene as wasted potential, wasted time in a show is homophobic. You can disagree with how the coming out scene happened. If it is a viable argument, or if the coming out scene was homophobic and dehumanizing, that's perfectly fine to have anger and feelings about that. But anytime somebody who's queer comes out or is courageous enough to actually be who they are, that is not wasted runtime. Because the only reason people say it's wasted runtime is because they want something heterosexual to be going on. Even if it's just somebody in a car sitting there, or nothing happening is better than somebody coming out. That's homophobia. I'm not saying we should make movies less heterosexual. I'm saying we need to show equal focus, compassion, interest, decency, visibility, all the above what you see in straight shows with queer people. Anything less, and you should not be allowed to write shows. You are a disgrace. And luckily, after taking certain classes and meeting a lot of interesting, complex writers who show the respect to queer characters that queer characters deserve, I am not going to support shows that treat queer characters like a joke, like something they can use to prop up straightness. If a queer character doesn't have at least one lasting relationship that doesn't have to be in-game per se, but they can explore something, that is homophobia. To not develop any romantic entanglements of any variety, even if it's short-lived in 7 seasons of a show, is homophobic. You're basically telling your queer audience, this person is not interesting enough to draw anyone's attentions. And yet, some of the most boring characters in horror movies have a girlfriend. Like, are you kidding me? It's perfectly fine to have a queer character have a love interest for 2 seasons and the person realize they want to travel or whatever. But stop breaking people up off screen, because they have no problem showing straight people break up. You cannot call yourself a progressive show, a woke show, a show about outcasts, and yet none of a certain queer outcast variety get a happy ending with somebody who wants them like they want them. That's homophobia. And I have no problem writing in the comment section. I hope somebody runs your favorite show because of the level of egregious disgust you write queer characters to be. And when writers treat queer people like a commodity or as an afterthought or give them a footnote romantic entanglement, which we don't care about because the person isn't a cast member, I will never watch anything those people produce ever again. No way. If I'm going to waste my time, and I mean, if I'm going to watch a show that with time I could be spending doing anything else. I mean, I'm an author. In the span of what it takes me to watch 7 seasons, I could write a book. Which, mine are on Wattpad, but still. I'm pressed for time. I work full time. I don't have the time to waste on underdeveloped characters, queer people with ambiguous sexualities and orientations, not getting their love interest, or even exploring what they are with another human being, platonic or romantic. I'm tired of bury your gaze in every shade, form, and egregious normalization. I'm tired of gay and queer people only being white. Even though I love heated rivalry, I want to watch with more diverse ethnicities. It's not that hard. Obviously in Hollywood it must be. And I think we've gotten to the point in 2026, we're going backwards. It's like we're going back to 1950, where the whole point of queer visibility is not enough. I don't want visibility anymore. I want queer people to have what straight people have always had and take for granted, rub it in the noses of queer people. I honestly do not care what cis heterosexual audience members want. They're going to get it anyway. I don't care what these people think about queer characters. If you're not an ally, you're not doing queer people any favors. When people make a big deal, especially straight cis people, when they make a big deal that you're wasting run time on someone's coming out scene or somebody finally finding someone who wants to explore the same things they do, that is noise. When heterosexual people make homophobic remarks, that's noise. Queer people and heterosexual people who want queer characters and narratives to be handled with respect, kindness, dignity, and compassion, that is not noise. Wanting 2 queer-coded characters to be together, that is not noise. What is noise is homophobia. That is noise. Because when you swap one of the people's gender, everyone would automatically say there's a chance. There may be no chance in hell. But if you're a heterosexual potential ship, that's validity. The only noise there is people talking about things that make heterosexuality the only viable way a show portrays love, family, romantic entanglements, desires, dreams. That's homophobia, and it's noise. Being queer does not hurt anybody. Not letting people be who they are, that hurts people. Conversion therapy is a crime against humanity. It's as terrible as slavery. Forcing anyone to change who they are so you're comfortable with it is a hate crime. Conversion therapy is a hate crime. Homophobia is a hate crime. I always say homophobia is the belief that you're a decent moral person if you like women. Sexism is the belief, misogyny is the action. Homophobia is a belief system. Hate crimes is the behavior. You don't have to hurt someone physically for it to be a hate crime. Trying to erase, devalue, or make jokes about someone who's coming out is a type of hate crime. There's nothing funny about coming out. I should know. I came out as an atheist in October. There's nothing funny about coming out. And when people do not show equal kindness, compassion, understanding to queer, just like they do with little to no effort for straight people, I will never, ever watch anything those writers create the rest of my life. I will not dignify their bigotry with my attention and my money. Unless they do a complete 180 and become amazing allies, they're dead to me. I don't wish them well, and I hope some writers out there run their favorite show, because that would be karma. They've run several of my favorite shows due to their homophobia. You cannot call yourself progressive, woke, an ally, if the only characters in your show that are outcasts don't get a happy ending because they're queer. You are a liar. And I see right through you. And luckily for me, most people see through them too. The only people who don't see through it are culturally ignorant people who don't realize what they're not seeing is because of racism, homophobia, sexism, and all that. It's a problem, and it's not cute. It's an issue that I'm tired of dealing with. We as allies and audience members need to advocate and show big companies that we're not going to consume or fund their machine if they're going to be homophobic, sexist, and racist. That's how companies decide to make things, based on what consumers consume. And if consumers who care about marginalized groups actually show companies by them losing money, we could actually make change. This is why companies like Disney became less racist. They were on the precipice of losing their audience because of progressive liberals, woke people no longer wanting to take their kids to Disney events because of the overt racism. Everyone makes a difference, for the better or for the worse. I will not watch or give money to any franchise or show that treats queer people as a joke. My time is valuable. My attention is not something I just give out. Writers, shows have to earn it. And I give very few chances. I choose very few shows. And I make sure there is 100% what I want is going to happen before I watch it. Even if I have to wait 10 years for a show to end, I'm not wasting my time anymore. And unless homophobic writers, racist writers completely do a 180 and change how they treat queer people and black people with consistency in a positive way, I just ignore. They're dead to me. I want nothing to do with them. They're a disgrace to professional writers and creators everywhere. They're an embarrassment. And hopefully by the time I'm dead in 50 years, it will no longer be socially, professionally, and morally acceptable to write homophobic storylines for queer people. Most of the ways they write women is disgusting. And I'm tired of it. I want what I want. And if I have to go to a show for the Philippines to get it, I'm doing it. If I want to see great queer visibility where they treat queer people, their desires, romantic interests with just as much and even more than what I've seen for straight people in American television, that's where I'll go. Heated rivalries, it soared so far over my expectations that I'll be there next year when they release season 2. I will not be there when they release Tales of 85 or anything that's a spinoff of any show that does homophobia. I do not put up with character rot. I will not put up with unresolved plot devices. I will not put up with tropes that are homophobic, sexist, and racist. I don't want people to be stereotypes. Subvert whatever it is and keep characters consistent. You can write characters unbelievably well, complex, gray, and still not fumble their character. Or, better yet, actually resolve their character problems. And when your character does things that is never resolved in the entire show, you've lost me. And I'm not going to buy ships and character development in in-games when there's no evidence to back it up. I'm not going to buy a toxic relationship. I'm not going to buy toxic family and toxic romantic involvement anymore. You cannot sell me on a relationship if it's toxic. I don't want it to be in-game. And you can dress it up as much as you want, but I am not going to root for it. Relationships are supposed to make people the best version of what they already are. If you're not living your best life because this person is in your life, I will never, ever accept that this couple is a good couple. If couples fight more than they have happy times, if one character cannot say important words or actively avoids and gaslights and does weaponized incompetence to avoid emotional declarations or hard decisions, hard conversations, you cannot sell me on an in-game. If they never resolve character issues, disagreements, misunderstandings, you cannot sell me an in-game. My worst pet peeve, my second worst pet peeve is when there is misunderstandings, downright asshole behavior. They never show them resolve it, but the next season they act like everything's been resolved. And then usually the boyfriend does whatever they're gaslighting us into saying they resolved again. And I watched another show, it wasn't on Netflix, where a guy liked somebody and they never did anything with it. Yeah, it's the Chekhov's gun scenario. If you're not going to fire it, it shouldn't be there. You can have a crush that's unrequited, but it has to be dealt with, and the person needs to move on. In this scenario, they just never did anything, and then it just vanished. That's lazy writing, people. I've written 12 books. I know what good writing is. And if someone says they're never going to be happy, they're not worth loving, you don't prove them right. I mean, I've watched 3 shows in the last 6 months that stomped all over the most beloved literary tropes of all time. Stomped on it, erased it. When you have... I've watched shows that had so many plot holes. I stopped watching. When shows make a mockery of literary devices, where they never resolve plots that hinge on that character's resolution, you've lost me. And once you've lost me and bored me, I will never come back. For no reason. I'm the kind of person, if what I want isn't happening in front of me, on the screen, it will never happen. That's the way I interpret it. Romantic pairings, orientations. If it is not, if the character does not say I'm gay, bisexual, or if they like someone, if they're not currently with them, I will never believe they'll get together. Because I've been burned so many times, I'm sick of these people. And if you're as sick as I am about it, leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear which queerbaits you got sucked into. I do not wish these writers well, and I hope someone runs their favorite show.